Well, good morning. I am so glad that you're back here with me again for another episode of my podcast about real estate investing. So, have you had any questions for me since the last time? If you do, please go ahead and write it down under the comments area section of this website, and I'll be very happy to answer all your questions, okay? But for today, I'd like to take a little bit of time to answer the questions that I got since the last time that we broadcasted our podcast. And I'm going to also talk about a tiny bit of how do you actually buy right in today's market. I know it's 2018 and it's quite expensive, especially in the Silicon Valley. And I don't know any investor out there that actually buy in San Jose, in Fremont, in San Francisco, what have you, and actually make 35% profit or more. Okay, so how do you actually do it? So those are the two areas that I'm going to be discussing today. Alrighty. So the first question of the day is, number one, what are the downsides of buying property in Detroit? Well, for those of you who don't know, Detroit is a city in the eastern part of the United States. It's a poorer area compared to other areas, and it has been in a down decline, so to speak, for a very, very long time. Now, I would imagine the person who's asking this question, and is anonymous, is thinking or may have attended a seminar or many different seminars where Detroit properties were being pitched as a very, very reasonable property to invest money in. Number one, for cash flow purposes, and then number two, it's quite inexpensive. The person didn't really indicate here in his question whether or not he was going to pay 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, or whatever for this property in Detroit. But just so you know, for those of you who live in other parts of the world, and I know I have an audience that spans across the globe, not just right here in America, when you hear of a property being sold in some part of the United States for so cheap, okay, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, man, I'm so excited. I'm going to be a landlord and I'm going to make a bunch of passive income being a landlord, and you're excited, and you just fly over and buy a property in Detroit. Stop, okay, time out, okay. The reason why I bring this up is because I have seen many gurus who actually make a lot of money scamming people like this. Now, is it really a scam? I think it is, and regardless of what they say, okay? And so this is how the scam usually goes. So you're a very naive, brand new real estate investor, and you want to build a real estate portfolio, and you attend this seminar put together by a bunch of very knowledgeable gurus somewhere in North America. And during this seminar, there are houses to be sold. And lo and behold, these houses are located in either Atlanta, in Dallas, in Orlando, Florida, or somewhere in Florida, and Detroit, okay? And I have actually attended one of these seminars in the past, and I listened to the entire pitch of how wonderful of a portfolio, real estate portfolio I was going to have by investing for as little as $50,000 in a house in Detroit. I think at some point it went down to 30,000. I have heard of cases where people would come in with $10,000 for a house. Yes, a house that's worth $10,000. So you know what kind of house that is. So here's the pitch. You can, number one, you can build a real estate portfolio with very little money. Number one, so that's very enticing. And then number two, all management, property management function is already lined up. In other words, the people who are pitching this idea to you are very naive real estate investors starting out building your real estate portfolio, is that you don't have to worry about a thing handling the real estate, the rental real estate. You can just be where you are, whether you're in California, and there are a lot of Californian real estate investors out here who cannot afford, or it doesn't make any economic sense at all for them to invest right here in our backyard, California, Northern California. So it makes sense to invest somewhere else, and for $50,000, 50 grand, you can actually get into a piece of property. You don't have to worry about maintenance, and their pricing is quite competitive, very competitive. I would have to say, and every month you just kind of sit up, and collect money. I mean, that's the dream that they're selling you, okay? And of course, I'm not doing a really decent job in selling this dream to you right now because I'm not them. But, man, I mean, if you're there listening to them, you're going to be sold right away. They are really good at this, okay? I'm telling you. And so, and I almost bought it. I almost bought it back in 2010, and because it was so enticing. I mean, to really make, back then it was like $500 per house. That is, that's cash on cash return. $500, and so I was thinking in my head that if I wanted to make $5,000 in passive income, all I had to do was really buy 10 houses. Okay, and I mean, no big deal. And you're gonna ask me, okay, Susanna, where do you get the money of $500,000 to buy 10 houses in Detroit? Well, I'm gonna get into that in a later episode, okay? But it's going to be, you're gonna learn a lot. I'm telling you, the more you listen and the more you follow me, you're gonna learn a lot, and for free too. And I'm gonna make all the episodes very fun for you to learn. It's not a very boring type of seminar, lecture. So hopefully, and so tell me if I'm too boring, then you let me know, Suzanna, you're too boring. Okay, so at any rate, so I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, with $500,000 I can actually buy 10 houses and make $5,000 in cash flow, and I do not have to be involved at all in the maintenance of the property. Everything they use the word that they use is turnkey. Okay, so the next time when you hear something turnkey, pay attention, because I will explain to you later on what that means. Alrighty, and so but one of the friends that I had at the time who also went to the seminar with me decided to go ahead with the purchase, and so he ended up buying 2 houses in Detroit. 2. 1, 2, okay? And I told him, you should do more research. You don't know who these people are. On paper, they sound great. They make a lot of promises, but you really have to fly to Detroit, look at the houses, look at the neighborhood, and see if this is something you want to get into. He was like, they already said you don't have to buy a house. I mean, you can buy a house unseen, okay? And I know a lot of investors out there buying properties without seeing the property. I've never done that. Well, have I done that? I've done it once, okay? And I regret until today, which I'm gonna get into. This was way before I decided to become a real estate investor in 2009. So this happened in 2005 when the real estate market was really, really hot. I don't know if for those of you who remember back in 2004, 2005, you could actually take money from your house that you're living in. I call it, with equity withdrawal. Take it out and then put it as a down payment on the next house. And it was super, super crazy, the market that was super crazy. And so that was the only one time when I ventured into buying real estate without seeing the property myself. And like I said, I regret that decision until this day. So never buy any real estate without seeing the property, without inspecting the property. So going back to the story of my friend, I told him not to buy, that he needed to actually go, number one, check out these guys who were pitching the portfolio to the entire audience. Number two, check out the neighborhood. And number three, check out the property manager, the property management company. Against all of which, he said no, okay? He was, I don't know, they did something to his brain, and he was just like, I've got to buy it right now, they're on sale. Buying a house is like, okay, buying a piece of clothes or something to him. He had to buy it right away, right there, because they were telling him they were giving him a discount, on buying multiple houses. So it's like, okay, hello, everybody, let's go and buy a bunch of Detroit houses and they're on sale kind of deal, kind of like Macy's deal. So at any rate, fast forward several years, I kept following up with him to see how he did on his Detroit property. And he lost his shirt. Yeah, he lost all of it. Whatever money that he put in, he lost it. So I feel sorry for him, to say the least, because $100,000 was not little money. Okay, but not only he lost his shirt on the deal, he also lost time, and he got upset, and so that impacted his health. So let's think about this. Why would you want to be in a situation where you make a decision hastily, so thinking that you are doing something that's correct, that's right, that's going to help you build long-term wealth, and yet at the same time you're not putting the time in to do proper research? That doesn't make any sense to me. So another client of mine also got into another Detroit property. This lady actually just got one, not two, like my friend. And after I spoke to her, because we were talking about doing retirement planning and her projected cash flow by the time she retires, and so that's when the Detroit property came up, because I had to do a plan for her. So I needed to know what assets she had and how much money she had, and so on and so forth. So during the conversation that I had with her, it's very apparent to me that she also lost money on her Detroit property. And the story is interestingly very similar to what my friend had experienced before. So I just don't know if it was the same people selling Detroit properties. And now, so basically, you get title to the property, and the property manager would get the tenants in, and so they start paying rent, okay? Now, amazingly enough, after a few months of paying rent, then they stop paying rent. And after they stop paying rent, guess what? The property manager would then kick them out of the property, your property. Okay, so now you go, okay, wonderful. I'm going to put in place a new tenant. Yeah? Okay. Well, guess what? The previous tenant, before they walked out of your house, they destroyed the house. They destroy it. Okay? So in this case, and in both cases, my friend and my client, their house or houses actually were destroyed in such a state that it's empty. Okay, so they would take out the cabinets, the tenants. We don't know, you know. I was not there, so I have no idea. But the way it was explained to me was the cabinets were missing, the toilets were missing, basically everything, things that are attached to the house. Okay, the tenants, they just took them out, and they're gone. Okay. So as a landlord, how do you deal with that? I mean, do you really want to be in that situation? I wouldn't want to be in that situation at all. So going back to the story, so now you cannot rent an empty place to a new tenant. You know, that's nonsense. Nobody's going to pay you $1,000 or $800 to live in an empty space with no cabinets, no toilets. So as a landlord, what are you going to do? Okay, you may call the insurance company and you may have like a theft claim, okay? But with the property being in Detroit, well, guess how many theft claims does an insurance company have to deal with? Okay, so that was not a very viable option. Plus, it's not like the insurance company is going to write you a check the next day for you to go out there and buy brand new cabinets, brand new toilets, and, you know, put them back in so that you get the house ready for a new tenant the next month. You know, I mean, it doesn't work like that. So, okay, so insurance reimbursement option is out for both my friend and my client. And so my friend at that time, you know, decided just to basically walk away. You know, he didn't want to deal with that anymore. But the lady, the client of mine, actually decided to kind of stick it out. You know, like, yeah, I'm gonna fight this. Okay, I'm gonna win this battle. So she actually spent money refurnishing the whole place again. Can you believe that? It's just incredible. So she spent, I don't know how much it was, but, you know, I mean, if you have to furnish, or, you know, put the cabinets back in, that's, you know, $3,000, you know, a toilet, a few $100 here and there, okay, to actually make a house livable again. So that was some money out of her pocket. Then, well, guess what happened to the next tenant? Yeah, the same story that happened. And guess what? Who's doing all the work? Well, she's here in California. Who does the work of, you know, putting the cabinets back in, the toilets back in, all of that for her? Well, she had to rely on the property management firm to do it. Well, apparently that firm did not do a very good job for her. Again, okay? And so the cost of make the whole house whole again, in a livable condition again, was somehow inflated, astronomically inflated. And so she had to eat all of that. So at the end of the day, she was so fed up with the entire process that she just like, okay, throw her hands up. And she gave up, okay? And she walked away from the property. And she was trying to sell it for a lot less than what she paid for it. So basically, at the end of the day, it was a very, very bad investment for her. Now, I only have a few examples of how people bought property in Detroit had experience, and I personally did not have a very bad experience like that before. All my tenants so far have been great tenants. They pay their rent on time. They help me take care of the properties, the maintenance of the property, and the whole 9 yards. And I give them a discount in rent, okay? That's also another strategy that you may want to implement if you are the kind of landlord that don't want to be hands-on fixing up stuff. Just give your tenant a discount on the rent, okay? If the typical price for a house, a three bedroom, 2 bathroom kind of house right here in the Silicon Valley going for like $3,500. Maybe you give them $3,300 or $3,400, $100 discount. That way, when they experience some issues with appliances in the house or stuff not working properly in your house, they don't have to call you up every single time and kind of disrupt your day, okay? They can just take care of it themselves in exchange for a discounted rent. So at any rate, so to answer your question, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous or Miss Anonymous, what are the downsides of buying property in Detroit? Again, the downsides are, number one, you may lose your money or your entire investment in the case of my friend and my client. Number two, it's going to give you a lot of mental headaches that may not be worth your money. You may as well use the time that, gets you bogged down with all these problems. You may as well use it to do something else. Maybe spend time with your kids or learn a new skill, how to communicate better. I love learning how to communicate better. The third downside that I see in buying property in Detroit is, and you may not think about this a whole lot, is that you're helping these crooks, doing the business, because this scam has been going on for so long. I mean, as far as I remember, back in 2009, that's when I first entered into the professional real estate investing arena, and I already heard of it, Detroit. And now 2018, if you still see the same deal, be very aware of it. And I'm not sure why these guys are not being locked in jail or something for scamming so many people. So by buying into something that you don't know, you haven't seen, like this, you're just helping them prosper in their business, in their scamming business. So stay away from buying property in Detroit. I mean, there are houses in some part of the Detroit that are good that I know of, but these are the exceptions rather than the rules. Okay, so make sure you do your research, market research, and actually you're gonna spend a little bit of money to fly there, talk to the neighbors, the neighborhood in which your house is located, just to have a feel of what kind of people you're gonna be dealing with, and then very importantly, interview the property manager and do a little bit of a background check on them, the people who actually run the operation, because there are very shady property management companies out there that are just willing to take advantage of anybody who's naive, very new in the business. They just want to get into real estate investing because it sounds cool and it's easy in their mind to make money, passive income. So hopefully I've shared with you some of the important factors for you to consider if you ever consider buying in Detroit or any areas that have really, really cheap houses, like in Ohio. I think at one point it was like a great place to buy in Ohio because the houses there are cheap. Again, same issues. So until next time, I wish you have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. And please let me know what kind of questions or what kind of topics you want me to talk about in my next episode. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be in front of you every week to share with you my knowledge, not only about real estate investing, but also about money in general. and just life. And I do hope that you take this knowledge and apply it, because nothing really beats having hands-on experience. Well, until next time, bye-bye.